I was 5 years old, standing on the top floor of the Arab Institute of Music in Aleppo, the city's humble yet most important cultural hub. My violin teacher was from the former Soviet Union. He only spoke Russian. I only spoke Armenian. For a year and a half, my mother translated every lesson word by word. The concert hall wasn't really a hall. It was 2 classrooms opened up into each other with sliding doors. There were about 50 people in attendance, mostly teachers, relatives, and a local journalist. My sister Alice sat on an upright piano just like this one, and I played 45 minutes of music, all from memory. The next day, the local paper ran a short article titled "الطفل الموهوب," which translates to "the talented kid." It was wonderful, until my friends started teasing me with it for years to come. A year later, I skipped first grade. To do that, I had to learn enough Arabic in 3 weeks to pass an exam for second grade. It was my first exposure of what hard work and curiosity could unlock. From then on, people kept asking, "So, are you the one who plays the violin or the one who's good in school?" I didn't choose to play the violin. It was chosen for me. When I was 3, my parents put a 1/8 size violin in my hands. At first, it was curiosity. But very quickly, I wanted to go outside and play with friends instead of practicing scales for hours. My parents had a rule. I had to play the violin until I was 18. Only then could I decide whether to continue or quit. And if you've ever met Armenian parents in the Middle East, you know your practicing is not a suggestion, it's the law. So for every practice session, became a negotiation between rebellion and responsibility. When I was in high school, I was competing in an international violin competition in Beirut, Lebanon, and I somehow made it to the finals. In between rehearsals, I wandered onto a basketball court and started taking shots, something no serious violinist would ever do, especially before a performance. 1 jammed finger and you're done. My teacher was horrified. But the teenager in me, carrying years of that talented kid label, needed to prove the violin didn't own me. Of course, that was nonsense. I ended up winning second prize, but more importantly, I learned that the moment you start hiding part of who you are, you split yourself in 2. When I finally turned 18, something unexpected happened. The pressure reversed. My family said, "Enough violin, time to do something practical. How about engineering?" And that was around the time we moved to Los Angeles. And suddenly, the world opened up. Opportunities everywhere. On one side, I was talking to an engineering professor about all the fascinating work we could do together around data-driven modeling, what we would eventually call AI. On the other side, not only I was listening to a live orchestra for the first time, I was playing in one, sitting next to artists I had only heard on cassette tapes and scratchy CDs back in Aleppo. And now that no one was forcing me to play, I didn't want to stop. When I started my PhD in engineering here at USC, my research quickly spanned into multiple disciplines, which meant taking courses in areas I had no background for at the time. One week, I had a brutal exam in one of those courses. And the very next morning, I had an audition at the Juilliard School in New York City. My head was split in 2, study or practice. I somehow took the exam, barely slept, took the red eye to New York, and played the audition running purely on adrenaline. That performance earned me a place at the Verbier Festival Orchestra in Switzerland, my artistic home for the next decade. I always thought that week symbolized a conflict between two worlds. But now I realize it was my first glimpse of a hybrid life, where logic and emotion, structure and creativity fuel each other. Living this way wasn't effortless. It required ruthless prioritization, sometimes on an hourly basis. I would have an hour and ask, do I solve a difficult equation for an upcoming paper, or practice a difficult passage for an upcoming concert? Which gives me better return on focus right now? Those micro decisions, what to work on, what to let go, how to let one mode refuel the other, became the rhythm of my life. I didn't know it then, but those trade-offs were quiet training for leadership. Prioritizing under uncertainty, balancing logic and intuition, bringing structure to chaos. Living as a hybrid had an unexpected cost: perception. In music, I would hear, "Wait, you're also an engineer? Probably you're just playing for fun." As if that meant I wasn't taking music seriously enough. In engineering, I would hear, "Wait, you also play the violin professionally?" As if I wasn't serious enough about science. For years, I performed two identities, presenting a different version of myself to each audience. I thought I had to hide one passion to be taken seriously in the other. But then something shifted. The opportunities that found me were not looking for an engineer or a musician. They were looking for someone who could bridge between two worlds, someone who could understand both languages. The truth is, I wasn't divided, I was multiplied. Whenever I was stuck on an engineering problem, few hours of music could untangle it. When music became overwhelming, mathematical logic brought balance. Neither side was stealing time from the other, it was giving it back in a different form. Over time, my hybrids changed shape. The violinist and the scientist became the engineer, the technologist, the strategist, and the founder. Just last week, I spent a couple of hours coding for our AI platform, then spent a few hours with our product team talking about the design of our user interface, and then spent the afternoon pitching our product to customers. 20 years ago, people asked whether I would be the violinist or the engineer. Now I wake up, I'm both and 5 other things before lunch. While my worlds kept shifting, the pattern stayed the same. Every step forward came from blending, not choosing. When did we decide that was strange? When did "what do you do" become singular instead of plural? For years at the Verbier Festival Orchestra, our conductor would tell us, "Remember, we're playing for the dentist sitting in the 10th row." What he meant was we needed to reach beyond the experts to move people who might not live and breathe classical music on a daily basis. Every time he said it, I smiled, because I was that 10th row person, except I was no longer in the audience. And that's when I realized perhaps I'd been asking the wrong question all along. it wasn't which world do I belong to, it was what becomes possible when I stop choosing. So look around this room. Someone here has their own 10th row story. You know who you are. A place where you watch, admire, appreciate, but never get to perform. I'm here to tell you, you don't have to stay in the audience. The engineer can play in the orchestra. The dentist can hold the paintbrush. And the cellist can go to the lab and start coding. So stop watching your other life from the 10th row. Walk onto the stage.